Hi, welcome to the PurposeMaker. Tonight's video is going to be deep. I had a friend encourage me the other day to talk about the foundation of how this PurposeMaker started to come together. And so typically what I have been doing is writing my newsletters through the week, releasing them Friday morning, nice and early, so the morning crowd can have a coffee and read the newsletter. But after my conversation the other night, I decided I'm going to shoot a video. I want to talk to this crew. I want to talk to people that are listening, and I want to talk to people that are struggling. So before I was writing my PurposeMaker newsletter, I was doing a lot of writing about veteran suicide. And veteran suicide was a huge problem and still is. At the time I was writing about it, the VA had published some research that said about 22 veterans per day were taking their lives. It was a massive issue. So I'm writing these articles, they're connecting with people, they're resonating, I'm getting a lot of feedback, people are responding, they're thinking about their lives differently. So I get a call from a guy from Utah, and he says, hey, I've got an idea for a veteran suicide prevention network. I said, yeah, I'm interested. What do you got? And he said, well, we know that about 98% of people, veterans that are going to take their lives, post on some type of social media before they make the decision. And I was like, that's pretty interesting. So the idea behind that is they're looking for help, right? They're putting their final post up hoping somebody notices them. Well, long story short, that gentleman was a former Green Beret. He flew up, we met, we put together a DBA under one of the nonprofits that I work with. And for a year, basically, we set up that we were going to be an incubator. We were going to lend the creative side and the program and the coaching and the teaching and that kind of stuff. And then he was going to do the legwork connecting with the vets. So we built this network, and in the first month, it got to about 600 people. At the end of the year, about 6,000 people were part of the network. It was a pretty amazing impact. It was an impact, obviously, in a lot of people's lives, but a huge impact on my life, just to see the amount of people that struggle. So after one conversation with a gentleman that was particularly struggling, I was driving home. I'm asking myself, man, how could somebody get to the point that they're going to put a gun in their mouth or they're going to swallow pills to the point that they are no longer here? And an image popped in my head. And so I pulled over, I drew it out, and basically it was a triangle. It had a T, an I, and a P. So TIP, T-I-P. It stands for transition, identity, and purpose. So what I figured out was for somebody to really struggle in this world, they had to be going through one or more transitions, most of those unplanned, negative transitions, a loss of an identity, and a loss of purpose. So if you're listening to those three things, what does separating from the military do? The major transition, leaving the military. Then some people come home to chaotic home lives, so they're going through a divorce, they can't find employment, they lose their military identity, and they lose their military purpose. So now I call this the life flywheel, right? And so if you start stacking multiple transitions on top of themselves and a complete loss of identity and a loss of purpose, you cause massive confusion. Confusion and chaos, we can't live like that. Humans do not flourish long-term in chaos. Short-term, many people get an adrenaline rush in chaos, but long-term, you can't live there. There's no health and wellness living in chaos. So what a lot of people do when they're in that depressed, confused, chaotic state is they self-medicate. And that's either with drugs or alcohol, or some other poor coping mechanism. And what that does is it creates the downward spiral. And that downward spiral, it's a nasty one, because the end of that is typically somebody questioning why they're here. So we were trying to get people out of this life flywheel, out of the chaos of the life flywheel. Everyone's going through it. You and I are going through it. You have things going on in your life. Things change. Accidents happen. You could lose a loved one or a spouse. That changes your identity, makes you question your purpose. These are tough things. You could be dealing with a major health issue, a cancer. You could be dealing with aging parents and young kids. All of these things create these questions. Who am I? And why am I here? And what am I doing? So I create that tip method, and then I start realizing I need to write to this. So this is how I created the PurposeMaker. And the PurposeMaker, the foundation of everything that I write about, is to transition identity and purpose and the different things that can affect that life flywheel. So now I've been designing programs that we call wisdom programs, because the wisdom is you beginning to understand this flywheel and then apply it to your life in a positive manner. So basically what I did was reverse engineer what happens when somebody starts to go down into chaos, and say, okay, so if, I don't like the word suicide particularly, but another word for it is an existential crisis, right? There's a crisis about existing on this earth. So what's the opposite of that? Existential wellness. That was the opposite. And so these programs are designed to get you into the mind frame, get you physically and mentally, spiritually and intellectually thinking about the existential wellness. And so I've been teaching these programs, and normally I write my newsletters through the week. I send them out Friday morning, and my intent and hope is you get to consume some of the stuff I write with a nice cup of coffee. That's kind of how I like to read it. I read my newsletters too, just to go over them and kind of make sure everything sounds good. Well, I had a call the other night from a friend, and he was a little distraught. A good buddy of his took his life at 74 years old. And so we had a sad conversation at night about some of these hard questions. And so the genesis of PurposeMaker, I've had this information for a while. I've been raising my kids. I've been extremely busy with my practice, so I haven't really put a lot into getting this message out. Well, last year, 2 of my patients also decided to take their lives. Both gentlemen, both midlife, both struggling. So now I need to speak about it. There's a lot of people out there struggling, and the struggle's interesting because people don't like other people to know that they are struggling. Had another patient a couple of weeks ago mention that a nephew of his on his wife's side decided to take his life. So PurposeMaker is not a suicide prevention program. However, the foundation of existential wellness is understanding how somebody could eventually get to that point. And so this life is amazing. It's sacred, it's beautiful, and it's also dark, confusing, tough. There's a lot of different emotions and feelings as we're moving through this world. And health and wellness, particularly mental health, has to do with a sense of feeling well inside and not getting so stressed out in this life flywheel that you can't cope and you can't respond to life. So I hope that helps you explain a little bit, or not explain to you, but I hope my explanation helps you understand where I'm coming from in my writing and how I'm trying to reach people. So I want to thank you for being an avid reader of the PurposeMaker. This year we have lots of fun things we're going to launch, and this video is one of my first to kind of explain and set the foundation of what PurposeMaker stands for. So my question to you, can you become a purpose maker?